Hello YouTube, what's up? Hello! Prepare to open your mind like a freshly peeled banana. We are going to be talking about chimpanzees today and human evolution. I've got a notepad of stuff here I was going to talk about, but let's just wing it. This may get a little bit long-winded, so please try and stay with me. So to get started, we, human race, share about 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees, our closest relatives. But it's wrongly believed that we actually come from chimpanzees. We come from a common ancestors of chimpanzees. These common ancestors were also canopy dwellers and liked to feast on the flesh of fruits. They ate vegetation and they also liked to snack on insects and grubs. So at one point, X million years ago, there was a rainforest that spanned across the equatorial line of Africa, and that's where we are believed to have originated from. So somewhere along the line there was a change in the climate, and the environment of these ancestors of ours changed remarkably over tens of thousands of years. But the rainforest environment began to close out and drier, more arid landscapes came into play. So what happened was these ancestors ventured down into the outer world to find more food sources because their rainforest environment was dying out. So this adaptation allowed our ancestors to survive. So insert Homo erectus. That is not a joke, that is their name. So there's a couple of theories about the Homo erectus and why the human ancestor began standing up. The first being better line of sight, easier to see prey and easier to see predators coming. Number two, easier to wade through water. If you've ever seen a chimpanzee or a monkey trying to get through a stream, they always sort of stand up and wade through. Number three, it takes less energy to walk on two legs than it does on four. Somewhere they did an experiment on chimpanzees and had them walking on two legs and then on four legs. And they found that the chimps that walked on two legs used 75% less oxygen in order to carry out the same amount of distance. Another reason behind standing was to allow the males to walk around and carry fruits or food back to the families and provide more. So it's thought that this increased efficiency in Homo erectus allowed them to partake in other activities such as socializing, where communication would have been developed. It's thought that communication would have enabled these early peoples to start to pack hunt and plan out strategies to take down larger beasts, which would supply more food and nutrition to the tribe. So they would hunt down the game, they would strip it off its fur, they would eat all the juicy bits, so they'd eat the heart, they'd eat the lungs, they'd eat the liver. They wouldn't leave anything to waste, they'd take the sinews. So if something was caught, it was almost eaten immediately, which is why things like nuts and berries and storable items were much more highly prized and still made up a large majority of their diet. Now, with the discovery of fire, we were able to start cooking our foods, like this sweet potato here. If I was to eat this raw, it would take me a couple of minutes to chew it and swallow it, and then it would take me a whole lot longer to digest it. However, because it's cooked, I can masticate it easily, and the digestion process will take much less time. So by reducing the time, we increase the amount of food we are consuming, and that allows us to have more calories. Now, calories are used by our body to run basic functions like breathing, heating your body, liver function, brain function. Your brain is the third highest consumer of calories in the human body. Now, by increasing the number of neurons in your brain, you increase the amount of calories you need to eat. Now, this is why the human species is so intelligent, because we were able to consume more calories in less time and have more time for activities such as socializing and discovering the world. So from this ancestor spawned off the Neolithics, or as we know them, the Neanderthals. Now, the Neanderthals liked to hunt. They were strong and powerful. They could chase down prey. They had the communication, the fire, the cooking skills. Neanderthals had a 50% vegetation to meat ratio. So Neanderthals would hunt big game such as woolly mammoth. And what's thought to have happened is that the climate changed and the food sources for the woolly mammoth declined, which declined their population. And in doing so, because the Neanderthal diet was so heavily based on meat products, 50% so, their food source dwindled and that caused them to start dying off. Insert Homo sapiens. Now, Homo sapiens, with the discovery of curing and being able to transport food around, they were able to move around and find new pastures in which to hunt. Now, at some point along the line, they developed the ability to farm, and hence agriculture was born. So with a surplus of food, Homo sapiens were able to breed more readily, they'd have more social time, and the population began to rise and rise and rise. Now with farming, you reduce the amount of effort in having to hunt and having to gather your food. Now having said that, because they were able to adapt to the circumstances in which Neanderthals couldn't, they are alive today to tell the tale. Now, what I'm getting at is that we are now in a circumstance where we are faced with planetary destruction. Due to pressures and imbalances in the planet, man has made a mockery of Mother Nature, and so what I'm really getting at here is that along our ancestral species line, we've faced problems which we'd have to overcome in order to survive. Insert 2016. We're facing another bout of climate change that may just wipe out all life on Earth as we know it. We're now suffering from things like water shortages, we're suffering from drought, pollution of our oceans, rivers and streams, and contamination, soil depletion, destruction of the ozone layer, destruction of the rainforest, destruction of the ocean, desertification, and a global overall temperature rise. Do you know what's the best thing? We can prevent this from happening to our planet. So I believe as an advanced species who can communicate across the globe, we must all come together and propose a solution. So by going vegan, you can reduce the consumption of water, fresh water, through not feeding it to animals or using it to grow plants to feed animals in animal agriculture. You can reduce the amount of animal waste that's contaminating environments and streams and rivers and oceans. Short known fact, but every second breath you take comes from the phytoplanktons in the world's oceans. So it's a pretty important place for us. You can reduce the amount of rainforests being destroyed by reducing the amount of space needed for cattle in order to graze. They cut down the trees and then put animals on that space to graze. You can reduce dramatically the levels of CO2 that's being emitted, down to the farming equipment that's used to produce all the grains and feed for the animals, the transportation of all these grains and the animals once they've been butchered. There's so many processes that's involved in farming animals that it's just much more effective to eat the plants instead. So cows that are fed on soybeans and grains, I don't think you'll find many cows nowadays are fed on solely grass, which produces more methane. This in turn creates a greenhouse gas effect and produces destruction of the ozone layer and more heat being trapped within our atmosphere. 16 pounds of grain and feed will be fed to a cow in order to produce 1 pound of flesh. So that 1 to 16 ratio is not efficient and it's causing more harm than it's causing good. So, and there's also like a reduced pressure of using more oil or fuel to power all these machines that's harvesting for and transporting the animals. So I believe if we come together and really have a look at what's going on in the world, look at the effects of the meat industry and the problems it's creating, we can, in an essence, continue our species by adapting to our change in environment. Thank you for listening.